On Saturday the 8th of April, Iranian police announced they were installing smart cameras to automatically detect and punish women not wearing the hijab. This video looks at this move in the context of Iranian women's fight for freedom against a repressive fundamentalist regime, as well as the wider ethics of surveillance. Firstly, women should have the freedom to wear what they like, as long as it doesn't harm other people in society. Clearly, the mere sight of a woman's hair does not cause any actual harm, so going unveiled should therefore be allowed in Iran. All the other Muslim nations, apart from Afghanistan, recognise this fact and respect women's right to wear what they choose in this respect. In this channel's opinion, women's right to wear the hijab should be respected, and their right to not wear the hijab should also be respected. Islamic Republic hardliners' arguments against it seem to be mainly reactionary hysteria. For example, cleric Ayatollah Mohsen Iraqi declared that the trend of improper hijab is somehow a new COVID that is instigated by foreign enemies. This type of baseless claim, referencing shadowy outside powers, is a stock device used by authoritarian regimes unable to accept their own people can see their oppression with their own eyes. Secondly, this is happening in the broader context of rolling protests ever since the death of Mahsa Amini in police custody last year. Mahsa, 22, was arrested on the 13th of September in Tehran by the morality police for breaching Iran's dress laws, brutally beaten in the police van, causing her to collapse and be sent to the hospital, where she died on the 16th of September. Her terrible death at the hands of unpopular morality police inspired massive anti-hijab protests across Iran and an attempted cover-up by the regime, who claimed it was a sudden heart failure. At least 522 people had lost their lives by January the 15th, with many shot or beaten to death by security services and groups of Islamic fundamentalists. Recognizing the injustice of women being snatched off the street for not quite covering their head enough, Chief of Police Ahmadreza Radan has suggested prosecutions and impounding women's vehicles, which simply shows the ultra-conservative regime under the Ayatollah Khamenei is ignoring the people and doubling down on an unjust law. Thirdly, although some Western commentators like to pretend otherwise, the cruel hijab law is everything to do with Islam. Whilst there may be Iran-specific cultural factors to the law, introduced shortly after the 1979 revolution, the majority of the rationale for the law comes from Islam, which can be simply observed by the fact this is what the regime uses to justify its actions. For example, on the 2nd of April, Iranian President Ayatollah Raisi declared the hijab is a religious necessity and a common divine command among all monotheistic religions and Islam's branches, which protects the individual and society from any harm. Raisi is actually right that the practice of hijab has been considered a requirement under Orthodox Islam for over 1,000 years by broad consensus. The Quran, in verse 24:31, commands, "And tell the believing woman to lower their gaze and guard their private parts, and not expose their adornment, except that which necessarily appears thereof, and to wrap their head covers over their chest, and not expose their adornment except to their husbands, their fathers." Additionally, verse 33:59 supports this. "Prophet, tell your wives, your daughters, and the believers' women to bring down over themselves part of their outer garments. This will make it more likely that they will be recognized and not abused." These verses are strong evidence on their own that the Quran would like women to dress with their head covered in the manner of the 7th century Arabian tribes it was addressed to. However, Islam is not just composed of the Quran, but also tafsir, authoritative commentaries on the Quran. The tafsir of a respected companion of Muhammad, Ibn Abbas, further supports this interpretation. See the below extract from the Yaqeen Institute. Ibn Abbas, a giant in Quranic exegesis and the cousin of the Prophet, for instance, explained that this clause meant that everything should be covered except the hands and face. It was also narrated from Aisha that the intended meaning is what appears from the hands and face. In the below hadith, authoritative reported sayings of Muhammad, the woman's action of covering themselves completely, including their heads except their face, is applauded by none other than Aisha, the wife of Muhammad. By Allah, I never saw any woman better than the women of the Ansar, or stronger in their confirmation of Allah's book. When Surat al-Nur was revealed, and to draw their kumma over their chests, they all tore up their waist wraps and covered themselves with them. Hadiths are almost as important as the Quran informing Islam, and this hadith and others like it leave the hijab's necessity in Islam beyond doubt, or at the very least places the burden of proof upon those seeking to claim otherwise. So the Iranian regime is correct about its necessity in Islam, but wrong to try to force it on women. No state has the right to force any individual to follow a religion, or its conception of a religion. It is fundamentally unjust because it is a denial of freedom of expression, which is what makes us humans, rather than simply cogs in a machine. Finally, to return to smart surveillance, or simply surveillance in general, it is clear that it is simply a tool. It is not good or evil in itself. CCTV cameras can be used to prevent or punish murder, robbery, or rape, which is unquestionably a positive. They can also be used by powerful clerics to deny young women their freedom of expression in the name of a regressive creed, which is unquestionably a negative. It is the intention behind it which matters the most. Please subscribe and like if you appreciated my musings, and have a good one.